Sometimes, when I reflect on the years gone by, I think about all the foods that have come in and out of favor. I remember back when people avoided butter for margarine, then switched right back, leaving me a bit dizzy about what's truly best for our bodies. Thankfully, time has taught me to trust moderation and common sense. I've also learned there are some items that consistently prove their worth, while others do more harm than good. Nuts, for instance, have always been considered a healthy choice, but we should choose wisely if we're looking after our senior health. For years, I kept a little jar of nuts near my rocking chair, thinking I was doing my heart a favor every time I snacked. Then, as I got older, I discovered that not all nuts are created equal. Certain ones can lift you up, giving your body essential nutrients. Others can be a bit troublesome, loaded with hidden fats, additives, or even toxins that might irritate your digestion or impact your well-being. Today, we'll talk about 4 nuts that deserve a spot in our pantries, and 4 we might want to avoid, especially in our older years. Let's begin. Before we get further, I'd like to know where you're joining us from, and if you get any value from these videos, a like and subscribe would mean a lot. After all, learning about the right foods to keep in our diet is an ongoing journey worth sharing. Thank you. I'd like to start with almonds, a staple in my cupboard for over 50 years. When I was a young parent, I'd slip a few almonds into my purse for a quick snack during errands, or a bit of extra crunch in a bowl of oatmeal. Almonds are known for their high vitamin E content, which helps keep our skin healthy and supports our immune systems. For older folks like me, that can be a big bonus. I found that substituting a handful of almonds for sugary treats gives me a steady stream of energy without the nasty sugar crash. Another big plus is their fiber, which can help keep the digestive system humming along. I know plenty of seniors who struggle with irregularity, and a small serving of almonds can be a gentle way to add a bit more fiber to the day. They also provide a dose of healthy fats that support heart health, so long as we don't go overboard. I remember a doctor once told me that just a small handful a day is enough. More than that might be extra calories. Still, I've always honestly felt it's better to eat almonds than chips or candy. I keep my almonds dry roasted and unsalted if possible, because extra salt can raise blood pressure. My sister has always enjoyed the flavored varieties, but I find they sometimes have ingredients I don't need. If you enjoy them, just check the label for added sugars or preservatives. Over the years, almonds have stayed my go-to for a reason. They're tasty, versatile, and truly supportive of overall health, especially for seniors looking to keep active and sharp. Give them a try if you haven't already. A little bag in your kitchen might just give you a beneficial snack at your fingertips. The second nut I keep close is the walnut. My late husband used to love cracking walnuts during the holidays, but we never thought of them as an everyday snack back then. It wasn't until my doctor mentioned omega-3 fatty acids that I paid closer attention. Walnuts have a good amount of those, especially the plant-based alpha-linolenic acid form, which can support heart and brain health. As we age, it feels like our minds can get a bit foggy, and any food that might help keep me clear-headed is something I'll happily add to my daily routine. Now I nibble. One trick I've learned is to soak my walnuts overnight, to make them a bit easier on the teeth and digestion. That slight softness can be more manageable if you have sensitive gums or dentures. I also enjoy them in baked goods, like walnut banana bread, though I keep the sugar low. People often ask me if walnuts are too high in calories, but I've found that a few go a long way. They fill me up, help me avoid less healthy snacks, and give me a nice dose of those essential fats that our bodies need. As we age, I've seen research suggesting walnuts might support healthy cholesterol levels, which is always a concern for folks in their golden years. My friend Dorothy started mixing crushed walnuts into her salads and claims her numbers improved. I'm no doctor, but I trust my own experience. Whenever I snack on walnuts instead of pastries, I feel better, both physically and mentally. They're rich, hearty, and a bit earthy in flavor, which suits me just fine. If you haven't tried them recently, pick up a small bag. They might not look fancy, but they can make a real difference for senior well-being. The third nut that deserves attention is the pistachio. I remember years ago pistachios were dyed red, staining my fingers during the holidays. These days, they're usually sold in their natural, pale green shells, which I appreciate. Pistachios have protein, fiber, and good fats. But they also have something else, a satisfying crunch that's perfect for mindful snacking. For me, the act of shelling each pistachio slows me down, so I don't overeat. My dentist used to warn me about using my teeth on the shells, so I do my best to crack them gently instead of biting. That helps. I also appreciate that pistachios are relatively lower in calories compared to some other nuts, which means I can enjoy a bit more without feeling too guilty. As I've gotten older, keeping my weight steady has become more important, partly for reducing stress on my knees. Pistachios offer a nice compromise. They give a good dose of vitamins and minerals while staying on the lighter side. My grandson got me hooked on mixing them into yogurt with berries. It's a colorful treat that keeps me satisfied between meals. And it sure beats snacking on cookies or cakes truly any day. One thing to watch out for is the salt content. Many pistachios come salted, and while that tastes great, too much sodium can be risky for blood pressure. I usually pick the lightly salted or unsalted versions. Some folks say they taste plain that way, but you'd be surprised how your palate adjusts over time. In my case, controlling my salt intake makes a huge difference in how my body feels day to day. If you love pistachios, try different varieties until you find one that fits your taste buds and dietary needs. They're truly worth the extra effort, indeed. The fourth nut on my list is the Brazil nut. I used to only see Brazil nuts in mixed nut cans around Christmas, but they've gained more popularity over time. One key reason is that they're very high in selenium, a mineral that helps with antioxidant functions and supports our thyroid. As we get older, keeping our thyroid healthy is crucial for our overall metabolism. However, Brazil nuts are quite large, and they're also very calorie-dense. My doctor advised me not to overdo it. Just 1 or 2 Brazil nuts a day can provide the selenium we need. Be mindful. I remember the first time I heard about selenium. I was in my 60s, dealing with brittle nails and feeling a bit run down. A nutritionist suggested I try a small amount of Brazil nuts. Within a couple of weeks, I noticed a difference in my energy levels. Now, I'm not saying they're a cure-all, but for me, they provided a nice boost. The key is moderation. Some people think if a little is good, more is better, but that's not always true. Too much selenium can be harmful, so we need to keep our servings small and steady. Trust me. One of my favorite ways to eat Brazil nuts is to crush one and sprinkle it over a salad or into a homemade trail mix. I'll add a few pumpkin seeds, maybe a dried cranberry or 2, and that single Brazil nut gets spread around. It's a flavorful way to incorporate its nutrients without accidentally eating too many. I also like that Brazil nuts have a creamy texture, which is different from the crunch of almonds. If you're curious, give them a try. But remember, you only need a small portion to reap their benefits, especially in our older years. As we shift gears, let's talk about some nuts we might want to avoid. First on my list are raw cashews, which might surprise people. I'm not talking about the roasted, salted cashews you find in stores. The raw ones sold commercially are usually steamed to remove toxic substances, But truly raw cashews contain a compound called urushiol, the same irritating substance found in poison ivy. Handling or eating them can cause serious issues if you're not careful. While it's rare to find raw cashews on the market, I've seen them pop up in specialty shops, so caution is key. I heard a story from a neighbor who thought she was buying natural, healthy cashews for a recipe, only to end up with a rash on her hands and around her mouth. Turned out those cashews were barely processed, still carrying traces of urushiol. The lesson here is that, while cashews can be delicious and nutritious in their roasted form, the raw versions might pose a problem. Especially for us older folks, dealing with unexpected allergic reactions or skin irritations can be more troublesome than when we were younger. So, it's often best to stay on the safe side, indeed. Now, most of the cashews you'll see in regular grocery stores are safe because they've been processed properly. But if you ever spot something labeled truly raw cashews, be aware of the potential risks. I like cashews as much as the next person, roasted and salted. They're certainly tasty, but I stick to the versions that won't give me a nasty surprise. As we age, we have enough on our plates without adding poison ivy-like reactions to the list. Just a little caution goes a long way. So always check the label or ask questions if you're unsure about raw cashews. Trust me. Next up, I'd suggest steering clear of macadamia nuts if you're watching your waistline. They're not toxic like raw cashews, but they are extremely high in fat and calories. Now, I know some folks say the fats are mostly monounsaturated and can be heart-friendly in moderation. That might be true, but I found macadamias to be almost too easy to overeat. Back in my 60s, I'd buy a small bag and end up finishing it in one sitting because they taste so buttery and rich. For seniors trying to maintain a healthy weight, they can be a real temptation indeed. I also recall reading that macadamias can be pricey, which might not fit every fixed retirement budget. When I overspent on them in the past, I realized I was essentially paying a premium for something that wasn't doing my waistline any favors. I'm all for enjoying life's pleasures, but I prefer to spend my money on foods that provide a bit more nutritional bang for the buck. If you really love macadamias, maybe reserve them for a special occasion rather than a daily snack. That way, you can savor them without letting them sabotage your health goals. Don't overindulge often. In my experience, macadamias are so tempting because of their velvety, rich taste. You pop one, then another, and suddenly half the bag is gone. At this stage in life, our metabolism isn't what it used to be, and carrying extra weight can strain our joints. If you're anything like me, discipline can waver when something tastes this good. That's why I generally skip macadamias altogether. If I'm craving something buttery, I might have a couple of cashews, the roasted safe kind, instead. Or I'll reach for an almond and remind myself of the healthy benefits it offers. Trust me. Another nut I recommend avoiding is the bitter almond, which isn't the same as the sweet almond we enjoy. Bitter almonds contain higher amounts of hydrogen cyanide, a substance you definitely don't want in your system. While most of us rarely come across bitter almonds in everyday stores, they can appear in certain specialty shops or international markets. Some folks use them for unique flavor extracts, but if they're not processed correctly, they can be dangerous. I've always stuck to sweet almonds to keep things simple. You never want to mix them up by mistake, especially in your golden years. I recall a friend once brought back a bag of almonds from a trip overseas, raving about their intense flavor. After eating a few, she felt nauseous and had to see a doctor. Turned out they were bitter almonds that hadn't been properly treated. Thankfully, she recovered quickly, but it served as a real wake-up call. Sometimes curiosity can lead us to try new foods without understanding their risks. As older adults, we should be even more careful about what we put in our bodies. Bitter almonds might seem exotic, but they're best avoided unless you're absolutely sure they're safe. If you ever see almonds labeled bitter, or notice an unusual taste that's stronger and more pungent than usual, don't brush it off. It could be a warning sign. Some people think they can neutralize the cyanide by cooking, but it's not always foolproof. From my vantage point, it's just not worth the risk. With so many delicious, safer nuts available, why gamble with something that could entirely ruin your health, or worse? A few cents saved or a moment of culinary adventure is no trade-off for potential poisoning. Stick to sweet almonds and leave the bitter variety to the experts. The final category I'd be cautious about is heavily sugared or candied nuts. While not a specific nut type, these sweet treats can be just as problematic. I've seen all sorts of glazed almonds, honey-roasted peanuts, chocolate-covered cashews, and more. They're tasty, but the sugar content can be off the charts, spiking your blood glucose and adding empty calories. For people my age, balancing blood sugar is vital, and a seemingly small handful of candied nuts can push you over the edge. Not to mention, all that stickiness can cling to your teeth, leading to cavities or gum issues quickly. I remember falling in love with candied pecans years ago at a county fair. I kept going back for more, thinking they were better than fried dough or funnel cakes. But my doctor later pointed out how much sugar I was consuming with each crunchy bite. As we grow older, our bodies have a harder time managing big sugar spikes, and these sweet nuts don't offer much nutritional value beyond the nut itself. Sometimes, the coating has added fats and preservatives as well, which can be hard on the digestive system. It's truly a double whammy for seniors like us. Even the nuts I do recommend, almonds, walnuts, pistachios, and Brazil nuts, lose some of their health appeal once they're coated in sugar or drenched in caramel. If you want something sweet, you're better off adding fresh or dried fruit to your nuts, rather than loading up on candy coatings. Your doctor or dentist will likely agree that controlling sugar intake is crucial for older adults. I've learned this lesson the hard way. Now, if I spot a recipe calling for candied nuts, I reduce the sugar or skip the candying process. My body thanks me for it, and yours will too. We've covered 4 nuts that can offer genuine health benefits: almonds, walnuts, pistachios, and Brazil nuts, and 4 that might be worth avoiding or limiting: raw cashews, macadamias, bitter almonds, and heavily sugared varieties. At my age, I've learned that knowledge is power. It's always a relief to know which foods truly support our bodies and which ones could lead to trouble. No one has a perfect diet, especially as we juggle medications, changing tastes, and various health concerns. But small, intentional choices can make a world of difference. I hope this discussion encourages you to look at your nut options more carefully and make thoughtful decisions. It has been true for me. When I think back over the decades, I remember how attitudes about nutrition have shifted. Margarine was once hailed as healthier than butter, eggs were demonized, and coconut oil went from villain to hero to something in between. Nuts have mostly stayed in the good category, but as we've seen, it's not always so straightforward. Quality matters and preparation matters. Even something as wholesome as an almond or a walnut can lose its benefits if we drown it in sugar or salt. Meanwhile, certain nuts carry hidden dangers that aren't common knowledge. That's why being informed can help us avoid unpleasant surprises down the road. Trust me, I've been there. In my own household, I keep a small variety of nuts on hand. But I'm careful about how much I eat. If I'm craving something rich, I'll pick a walnut or 2. If I need a quick protein boost, almonds are my friend. Pistachios help me slow down and savor each shell, and a single Brazil nut provides my selenium fix. Knowing I have these reliable options means I'm less likely to reach for pastries or candies when my sweet tooth flares up. It's a system that works for me, and I've been able to maintain a healthier balance in my golden years. It hasn't always been simple, of course. Meanwhile, I steer clear of raw cashews, macadamias, bitter almonds, and sugary coatings because those can undo the good. Some pose health risks, and others tempt me into overeating. Life's too short to be battling avoidable problems like allergies, weight gain, or sky-high blood sugar. Instead, I focus on what nourishes me without sacrificing flavor. There's a certain peace of mind that comes from understanding the food on your plate. It's not about perfection or never treating yourself. It's about knowing enough to choose wisely most of the time. For older folks like us, that can mean fewer doctor visits and more time doing what we love. It's a precious gift. As we wrap up, remember that this advice is based on my own experiences and a lifetime of trial and error. I'm not a medical professional, so always consult your doctor or a nutritionist for guidance tailored to your unique situation. I simply hope sharing these insights helps you navigate the sometimes confusing world of nuts and encourages a bit more caution where it's needed. Whether you're adding almonds to your morning routine or reconsidering that bag of macadamias, each small step can help you live a healthier, happier life. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I wish you well. Take care and keep looking after yourself.